Marcus wiped the grease from his hands with a torn cloth as the massive Zethkari cargo ship settled onto landing pad 7 with a thunderous roar. The alien vessel's engines sent tremors through the concrete beneath his boots, and he squinted against the harsh blue exhaust flames that scorched the air. Another day, another alien ship needing repairs at the frontier station of Kepler 442b. The human outpost of New Horizon was nothing special, just a collection of prefab buildings, landing pads, and maintenance bays scattered across a wind-swept plateau. But it served as a crucial refueling and repair stop for ships traveling the Outer Rim territories. Marcus had been working here for 3 years, fixing everything from human cargo haulers to exotic alien craft that defied conventional engineering logic. As the Zethkari ship's engines wound down, Marcus gathered his tools and headed toward the vessel. The Zethkari were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless traders and slavers, standing nearly 8 feet tall with chitinous exoskeletons and 6 limbs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Their ships always reeked of sulfur and decay, and Marcus had learned to breathe through his mouth when working on their vessels. The ship's captain emerged from the main hatch, a particularly large Zethkari with deep purple chitin and scars crisscrossing his armored face. Captain Vexthor had been to New Horizon before, and Marcus knew him as someone who paid well but treated everyone around him like disposable property. Human mechanic, Vexthor clicked in broken standard, his mandibles clacking together. Engine makes noise. You fix quickly. I have schedule to keep. Marcus nodded, shouldering his tool bag. What kind of noise, Captain? Grinding, whistling, or knocking? The alien's compound eyes fixed on him with obvious irritation. Noise is noise. You are mechanic. You determine problem and fix. Without another word, Vexthor gestured toward the engine compartment and stalked away to oversee his crew unloading cargo. Marcus had worked on Zethkari ships enough times to know their engine configurations, but each vessel had unique modifications that kept him on his toes. He made his way through the ship's narrow corridors, noting the familiar sight of caged creatures in the cargo hold. The Zethkari traded in exotic animals from dozens of worlds, selling them to wealthy collectors or worse. Marcus tried not to look too closely at the frightened eyes staring out from behind the energy bars. There was nothing he could do for them, and dwelling on it only made his job harder. The engine compartment was a maze of crystalline power conduits and biomechanical components that pulsed with their own organic rhythms. Marcus set up his diagnostic equipment and began tracing the source of the irregular harmonic vibration that was causing the noise Vexthor had mentioned. As he worked, a faint whimpering sound caught his attention. It was coming from somewhere behind the main fusion reactor housing, in a space barely large enough for a person to crawl through. Marcus followed the sound, squeezing between 2 massive conduits until he reached a small maintenance alcove. What he found there made his heart skip a beat. Huddled in the corner was a small, furry creature no bigger than a house cat. It had the unmistakable features of a wolf pup, with pointed ears, a narrow snout, and bright golden eyes that watched him with a mixture of fear and hope. The creature was clearly very young, probably only a few weeks old, and it was shivering despite the warm temperature in the engine compartment. Marcus knelt down slowly, extending his hand palm up. "Hey there, little guy. What are you doing in here?" The wolf pup whined softly, but didn't back away. Marcus could see it was severely dehydrated and malnourished. A metal collar around its neck bore Zethkari markings, indicating it was part of Captain Vexthor's cargo. But why was it hidden away in the engine compartment instead of in a proper cage? As Marcus gently reached toward the pup, he heard heavy footsteps approaching. He quickly backed out of the alcove and returned to his diagnostic equipment just as one of Vexthor's crew members appeared. The Zethkari subordinate was smaller than the captain, but still towered over Marcus. His chitin was a mottled brown color, and one of his eyes was clouded with blindness. What takes so long, human? Captain grows impatient. Marcus kept his voice steady. Complex harmonic resonance issue. I need to recalibrate the fusion matrix. Give me another hour. The alien clicked his mandibles in annoyance, but didn't argue. Zethkari understood the importance of properly functioning engines, especially in the dangerous Outer Rim territories where help was days away. He stalked off, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and the hidden wolf pup. Marcus spent the next 40 minutes actually fixing the engine problem, which turned out to be a simple matter of replacing a worn harmonic dampener. But his mind kept returning to the frightened creature hiding in the maintenance alcove. Something about the pup's situation felt wrong, even by Zethkari's standards. When he finished the repair, Marcus made his way back to the alcove. The wolf pup was still there, looking even weaker than before. Marcus pulled out his emergency water bottle and cupped some in his palm, offering it to the creature. The pup lapped at the water desperately, its small pink tongue working frantically to get every drop. Marcus gave it more water, then broke off a piece of the protein bar he kept in his pocket. The pup devoured the food with the same desperate hunger. "Someone's not taking very good care of you, is they?" Marcus whispered. As if summoned by his words, Captain Vexthor appeared at the entrance to the engine compartment. His massive frame filled the doorway as his compound eyes swept the area. "Human, you are finished with repairs?" Marcus stood up, positioning himself between the captain and the alcove. "Yes, sir. Engine's running at optimal efficiency now." Vexthor approached, and Marcus could smell the sulfurous odor that clung to all Zethkari. The alien's gaze seemed to linger on the maintenance alcove for a moment before focusing on Marcus. "Good. You will transfer payment authorization now." Marcus pulled out his credit pad and processed the transaction. As he did, he couldn't help but ask, "Captain, I noticed you have quite a collection of animals in your cargo hold. Rare specimens?" The alien's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned was their equivalent of a laugh. "Rare, yes. Valuable to those with proper appreciation for exotic creatures. Some more troublesome than others." "Troublesome?" Vexthor's scarred face twisted into what might have been a sneer. "The young ones sometimes refuse to eat, refuse to cooperate. They die from their own stubbornness. Natural selection at work." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The captain was talking about the wolf pup, he was certain of it. In Zethkari culture, weakness was not tolerated, even in the animals they traded. If the pup wouldn't eat or was too much trouble, Vexthor would simply let it die rather than waste resources keeping it alive. "What happens to the troublesome ones?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Sometimes I leave them behind. Saves cargo space for more profitable specimens. The weak deserve their fate." The alien turned to leave, then paused. "There is small creature hidden in engine compartment. Wolf pup from Fenris Prime. It has not eaten for days, shows no spirit. I leave it behind when we depart. You may dispose of body when you find it." Marcus's hands clenched into fists at his sides. The casual cruelty in the alien's voice made his stomach turn. Vexthor was abandoning the pup to die alone in the engine compartment, treating its life as nothing more than an inconvenience. "When do you depart?" Marcus managed to ask. "1 hour. Cargo loading is nearly complete." After the captain left, Marcus waited several minutes before returning to the alcove. The wolf pup looked up at him with those bright golden eyes, and Marcus saw something there that made his decision for him. Despite its weakened state, there was still fight left in the little creature. It hadn't given up, even though its own owner had abandoned it. Marcus gently picked up the pup, feeling how light and fragile it was. The creature didn't struggle, seeming to understand instinctively that Marcus meant no harm. He tucked it inside his jacket where it curled up against his chest with a soft whimper. Getting the pup off the ship undetected proved easier than expected. The Zethkari crew was focused on securing their cargo and preparing for departure. Marcus simply walked out with his tools, the small bulge in his jacket hidden by his tool bag. He made it back to his workshop just as the Zethkari ship lifted off, its engines roaring back to life with the smooth efficiency of his repairs. Marcus watched the vessel disappear into the orange sunset sky, knowing that Captain Vexthor assumed he would find a dead wolf pup in the morning. In his small apartment behind the workshop, Marcus set up a makeshift bed for the pup, using old blankets and a cardboard box. He offered more water and food, which the creature accepted gratefully. Under better lighting, he could see that the pup was actually in worse condition than he'd initially thought. Its ribs were visible beneath its gray and white fur, and its eyes held the dull quality of severe dehydration. Marcus had grown up on a farming colony where his family kept dogs for herding livestock. He knew enough about canine care to recognize that this little wolf needed immediate medical attention. The problem was that New Horizon didn't have a veterinarian, and the nearest medical facility was 3 days away by ship. That night, Marcus stayed up researching wolf physiology and first aid on his computer. He learned that Fenris Prime wolves were actually quite similar to Earth wolves in their basic biology, though they were generally larger and more intelligent when fully grown. The pup would need constant care and feeding if it was going to survive. Every few hours, he offered the creature small amounts of water and soft food. By morning, there was a noticeable improvement. The pup's eyes seemed brighter, and it even tried to stand when Marcus approached its box. "That's it, little one," Marcus encouraged. "You're stronger than that alien thought, aren't you?" Over the next few days, the wolf pup's condition continued to improve dramatically. Marcus discovered that the creature was female, and her personality began to emerge as her health returned. She was curious and intelligent, often watching Marcus work from her box with intense focus. When he spoke to her, her ears would perk up and she would tilt her head as if trying to understand his words. Marcus found himself growing attached to the small creature faster than he'd expected. There was something about her spirit and resilience that reminded him of his own struggles to survive in the harsh frontier territories. Both of them were making the best of difficult circumstances, refusing to give up despite the odds against them. On the 4th day after the rescue, Marcus was installing new power couplings in a human cargo ship when he heard a commotion from his workshop. He rushed back to find the wolf pup had climbed out of her box and was exploring the room, her small nose working overtime to investigate all the new scents. "Well, look at you," Marcus laughed. "Feeling better, are we?" The pup looked up at him and wagged her tail for the first time since he'd found her. The sight of that small gesture of happiness made Marcus realize that he couldn't give her up. She had chosen to trust him, and he wasn't going to let her down the way her previous owner had. That evening, as Marcus watched the pup play with a makeshift toy he'd made from spare parts, he began to understand that rescuing her had changed something fundamental inside him. For years, he'd watched helplessly as ships filled with enslaved creatures passed through New Horizon. He'd told himself there was nothing he could do, that getting involved would only cause trouble. But now he had proof that one person could make a difference. One small act of compassion had saved a life and brought joy into his own lonely existence. The wolf pup had given him something he hadn't realized he was missing: purpose beyond just surviving from day to day. As he drifted off to sleep that night with the pup curled up on a blanket beside his bed, Marcus didn't yet know that his simple act of kindness would set in motion events that would ultimately shake the foundations of the Galactic Order. He was just a human mechanic who couldn't bear to watch a helpless creature suffer. But sometimes, that's all it takes to change the universe. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus rescued the wolf pup, and she had grown considerably stronger. Her gray and white fur now had a healthy sheen, and her golden eyes sparkled with intelligence and mischief. Marcus had named her Luna, After watching her howl at the twin moons of Kepler 442b on her first night of recovery, Luna had quickly proven herself to be far more intelligent than any Earth dog Marcus had ever encountered. She seemed to understand complex instructions, could open simple latches with her paws, and had an uncanny ability to sense his moods. When he was frustrated with a difficult repair, she would come and sit beside him, offering silent comfort. When he was happy, her tail would wag as if she shared his joy. The workshop had become Luna's domain during the day. She would follow Marcus around as he worked, staying safely away from dangerous equipment but always keeping him in sight. Her favorite spot was on top of a stack of shipping containers where she could survey the entire landing pad through a grimy window. Marcus had fashioned a proper bed for her from salvaged materials, and Luna had claimed an old jacket of his as her personal blanket. Every morning, she would greet him with enthusiastic tail wagging and playful nips at his fingers. Every evening, she would curl up beside his chair while he read technical manuals or watched old Earth movies on his tablet. For the first time in years, Marcus felt truly content. The loneliness that had plagued him since arriving at New Horizon had been replaced by genuine companionship. Luna was more than just a pet. She was a friend who seemed to understand him on a level that few humans ever had. But their peaceful routine was about to be shattered. Marcus was calibrating the nav computer on a Vegan trader vessel when he heard the unmistakable roar of Zethkari engines. He looked up to see a sleek military frigate descending toward Landing Pad 3, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. This wasn't a merchant vessel like Captain Vexthor's cargo hauler. This was a ship of war. Luna, who had been dozing in her favorite sunny spot, immediately came alert. Her ears flattened against her head and a low growl rumbled in her throat. Marcus had never seen her react to anything with such obvious fear. "Easy, girl," he murmured, but his own tension was rising. Zethkari military ships rarely visited frontier outposts unless there was serious trouble brewing. The frigate settled onto the landing pad with military precision, its engines shutting down in perfect synchronization. The main hatch opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and a squad of Zethkari soldiers emerged in full battle armor. Their black chitin gleamed like obsidian, and energy weapons hung from weapon harnesses across their broad shoulders. Behind the soldiers came an officer whose appearance made Marcus's blood run cold. This Zethkari stood even taller than Captain Vexthor, with deep red chitin marked by intricate golden patterns that indicated high rank. But it was his eyes that made Marcus shiver. Compound orbs that seemed to look right through him with calculating intelligence. Commander Drakzul of the Zethkari hegemony had a reputation that stretched across 3 star systems. He was known for his ruthless efficiency in putting down slave rebellions and his complete lack of mercy toward any species he considered inferior. His presence at New Horizon could only mean one thing: someone was in serious trouble. Marcus tried to continue working on the nav computer, but his hands were shaking. Luna had retreated to her hiding spot behind a stack of supply crates, but he could hear her worried whimpers. Station Commander Harrison emerged from the main administrative building to greet the Zethkari delegation. Marcus watched through the workshop window as the two groups met on the landing pad. Even from a distance, he could see the tension in Harrison's posture. The conversation lasted only a few minutes before Commander Drakzul dismissed Harrison with a contemptuous gesture. The human station commander hurried back toward the administrative building while the Zethkari soldiers fanned out across the landing area, clearly beginning some kind of systematic search. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he realized what was happening. They were looking for something, or someone, and given Luna's frightened reaction to their arrival, he had a terrible suspicion about what that might be. His worst fears were confirmed when Commander Harrison's voice crackled over the station's public address system. "All personnel, this is Station Command. We are cooperating with Zethkari authorities in a search for stolen property. Anyone found harboring stolen goods will be subject to immediate arrest and extradition. Please remain in your designated areas and cooperate fully with hegemony personnel. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. Stolen property. They were calling Luna stolen property. The fact that she was a living, breathing creature with her own thoughts and feelings meant nothing to them. She was just another item in their inventory, like a piece of equipment or a raw material shipment. Over the next hour, Marcus watched as the HFY soldiers methodically searched every building and ship on the station. They were thorough, but not destructive, clearly looking for something specific rather than conducting a general sweep for contraband. When they reached the workshop next door to Marcus's, he knew his time was running out. Luna seemed to sense the approaching danger as well. She had moved from her hiding spot to press against his legs, seeking comfort from his presence. Marcus knelt down and scratched behind her ears, feeling the softness of her fur and the warmth of her small body. In just 3 weeks, she had become the most important thing in his life. The thought of handing her over to creatures who viewed her as nothing more than merchandise made his chest tight with rage. "I won't let them take you," he whispered to her. "I promise." But what could one human mechanic do against an entire squad of HFY soldiers? Marcus frantically tried to think of hiding places they might miss, but the aliens were being incredibly thorough. They had scanners that could detect life signs, and Luna's unique Fenris Prime biosignature would be impossible to hide. The workshop door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and Marcus's heart hammered as 2 HFY soldiers stepped inside. Their armor made them look even more imposing than usual, and the energy weapons at their sides hummed with barely contained power. "Human mechanic," one of them spoke in heavily accented standard. "You will stand aside. We conduct authorized search." Marcus forced himself to remain calm. "What are you looking for? Maybe I can help." The second soldier activated a handheld scanner and began sweeping it around the room. "Stolen property. Fenris Prime wolf pup, female, approximately 4 standard weeks old. Property of Captain Vexthor of the merchant vessel Bone Ripper." "A wolf pup?" Marcus tried to sound confused. "I haven't seen anything like that. When was it stolen?" The soldier with the scanner was methodically checking every corner of the workshop. Marcus watched in growing desperation as the device's readings grew stronger the closer it got to Luna's hiding spot. Property was abandoned approximately 21 standard days ago. Captain Vexthor filed theft report when he realized valuable specimen had been removed from his vessel. Marcus felt a surge of anger at the alien's words. Vexthor himself had told Marcus he was leaving the pup to die because it was too much trouble. Now he was claiming it had been stolen? The hypocrisy was staggering, but Marcus knew that challenging the aliens would only make things worse. The scanner's beeping grew more insistent as the soldier approached the supply crates where Luna was hiding. Marcus could see her small form trembling with fear, pressed as far back into the shadows as she could manage. "Biosignature detected," the soldier announced. "Fenris Prime canine, juvenile female. Signal strength indicates proximity of less than 2 meters. The second soldier raised his weapon and moved toward the crates. "Surrender stolen property immediately, human. Resistance will result in criminal charges." Marcus stepped between the soldiers and Luna's hiding spot. "Wait. Before you take her, I want to speak with your commander." The aliens exchanged glances, their compound eyes reflecting confusion. "You admit to possession of stolen property." "I admit to saving a dying animal that was abandoned to die. There's a difference." For a moment, Marcus thought they might simply shoot him where he stood, but HFY military protocol apparently required them to at least report unusual situations to their superiors. "You will accompany us to Commander Drakzul," the first soldier decided. "Property will remain secured until disposition is determined." Marcus gently coaxed Luna out from behind the crates, speaking to her in soothing tones. She came reluctantly, pressing against his legs as if she could somehow hide behind him. The soldiers watched this interaction with obvious bewilderment, clearly unused to seeing such a bond between different species. The walk to landing pad 3 felt like the longest of Marcus's life. Luna trotted beside him, occasionally looking up at his face as if seeking reassurance that everything would be all right. Marcus wished he could give her that assurance, but he honestly didn't know what was going to happen next. Commander Drakzul was waiting beside his frigate, reviewing reports on a portable data tablet. When he looked up and saw Marcus approaching with Luna at his side, his compound eyes widened slightly in what might have been surprise. "So," the commander's voice was like grinding stone, "the human mechanic who would steal from the hegemony." Marcus straightened his shoulders, determined not to show weakness. "I didn't steal anything, Commander. I rescued a dying animal that had been abandoned." "Abandoned?" Drakzul's mandibles clicked in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as Zethkari laughter. "Captain Vexithor reported valuable breeding stock stolen from his vessel. You claim this is not accurate?" "I claim that Captain Vexithor told me personally that he was leaving the pup to die because she wouldn't eat and was too much trouble. I have the repair logs to prove when our conversation took place." The commander studied Marcus with those unsettling compound eyes. "You challenge the word of a hegemony citizen? I'm stating facts. Your valuable breeding stock was hidden in an engine compartment without food or water, slowly dying from neglect. Vexthor said he was going to leave her behind to save cargo space." Marcus could see that his words were having an effect on the surrounding soldiers. Several of them were looking between him and their commander with obvious confusion. The idea of a human challenging their version of events was apparently unprecedented. "Even if this is true," Drakzul said slowly, "the creature remains property of Captain Vexthor. You had no right to take it." "No right to save a life?" Marcus's anger was beginning to overcome his caution. "In human law, abandoning an animal to die is criminal negligence. Taking action to save its life is considered a moral imperative. Human law has no authority in hegemony space." "Then what does your law say about abandoning valuable property to die through carelessness?" The question seemed to catch the commander off guard. Marcus had done enough research into Zethkari culture to know that waste was considered one of the worst crimes in their society. Resources were precious in their harsh homeworld environment, and deliberately destroying valuable assets was a serious offense. "The circumstances of abandonment are irrelevant," Drakzul finally said, but there was less certainty in his voice. "Property must be returned to rightful owner." "Fine," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "But I want it noted in your official report that I'm returning healthy. Thriving property that would have been dead if left in Captain Vexithor's care. When she dies from neglect again, I want the record to show it could have been prevented." For several long moments, commander and mechanic stared at each other across a gulf of cultural difference and mutual incomprehension. Around them, the Zethkari soldiers shifted uncomfortably, clearly unused to witnessing such a confrontation. Finally, Drakzul gestured to one of his subordinates. "Scan the creature. Determine current health status for the record." The soldier activated his medical scanner and ran it over Luna, who pressed closer to Marcus's legs during the examination. After a few moments, the soldier looked up with obvious surprise. "Commander, the specimen shows optimal health indicators. Weight, muscle tone, and vital signs all within ideal parameters for the species and age group." Drakzul's expression was unreadable behind his chitinous features, but Marcus sensed a shift in the alien's attitude. Previous condition? Unknown without baseline data, but given the reported circumstances, survival would have been unlikely without intervention. The commander was silent for a long time, studying Marcus and Luna with those unsettling eyes. Marcus could almost see the calculations running behind those alien features, weighing protocols against practical reality, considering the implications of the situation. "The creature will be returned to Captain Vexthor," Draxul finally announced. "But this matter has raised questions that require investigation. You will be compensated for care provided, human mechanic." Marcus felt his heart breaking as he looked down at Luna. She sensed his distress and whined softly, pressing her small body against his legs in a gesture of comfort. The irony wasn't lost on him, that she was trying to console him even as she faced an uncertain fate. "Commander," Marcus said quietly, "she's not just property. She's intelligent, capable of forming bonds, able to feel fear and joy and pain. Doesn't that count for anything in your culture?" Draxul studied Luna for a moment, watching as she looked up at Marcus with obvious devotion. "Sentiment has no place in matters of law and ownership, human." But Marcus caught something in the commander's tone that hadn't been there before. A hint of uncertainty, maybe even doubt. The seed had been planted, even if it hadn't yet taken root. As the Zethkari soldiers prepared to take Luna away, Marcus knelt down and pulled her into a gentle embrace. She licked his face and wagged her tail, not understanding why his scent carried such sadness. "Be strong, Luna," he whispered in her ear. "Remember that someone cares about you. Don't give up hope." The soldiers led Luna toward their frigate, and Marcus felt a piece of his heart go with her. But as he watched the small wolf pup disappear into the alien vessel, he made a promise to himself. This wasn't over. Somehow, some way, he would find a way to help her. He had learned that one person could make a difference. Now he was about to discover just how far that difference could reach. Marcus spent the next 2 days in a haze of grief and rage. Every time he walked through his workshop, he expected to see Luna's small form watching him from her favorite perch or sleeping in her makeshift bed. The silence felt oppressive, broken only by the distant sounds of ships arriving and departing from the landing pads. Station Commander Harrison had tried to console him, explaining that there was nothing anyone could have done against Zethkari military authority. But Marcus knew the commander was just as disgusted by the situation as he was. Harrison had watched the entire confrontation from the administrative building, and his expression had grown darker with each passing moment. On the 3rd morning after Luna's departure, Marcus was mechanically checking the fuel systems on a human cargo hauler when his communications terminal chimed with an incoming priority message. The sender identification made his blood run cold. It was from Captain Vexthor. Marcus hesitated for a moment before opening the message. The text was brief and written in the captain's characteristic broken standard. "Human mechanic. Property you returned is defective. Refuses food, shows signs of sickness. You damaged valuable specimen with improper care. Demand compensation for loss of profit. Will arrive at your station in 2 standard days to collect payment." Marcus read the message 3 times, his anger building with each pass. Luna wasn't sick. She was heartbroken. The intelligent little creature was mourning the loss of the only being who had ever shown her kindness, and Vexthor was too ignorant to understand the difference between physical illness and emotional trauma. But the message also gave Marcus hope. If Vexthor was coming back to New Horizon, there might be a chance to see Luna again, maybe even a chance to help her escape permanently. Marcus began making plans immediately. He contacted every human trader and freight captain who regularly passed through the station, offering substantial payments for a simple favor. When the time came, he needed someone willing to take on an unregistered passenger with no questions asked. Most turned him down immediately, unwilling to risk their licenses for a scheme that sounded dangerously close to theft. But Captain Sarah Chen of the independent freighter Stardancer was different. She had grown up on a farming world where animals were treated as family members, and Marcus's story of Luna's plight struck a chord with her. "I can't promise anything," she told him over a secure comm channel. "But if you can get your friend to my ship without alerting station security, I'll make sure she reaches a safe harbor. There are human colonies in the inner systems that would welcome a Fenris wolf, no questions asked." Marcus also reached out to contacts throughout the frontier territories, spreading word about what had happened at New Horizon. The story of a human mechanic who had saved an abandoned wolf pup only to have it taken by alien authorities resonated with many people who lived on the dangerous Outer Rim. Within days, the tale was being shared across dozens of worlds. But Marcus's most important preparation was technical rather than social. He had been studying the schematics for Zethkari cargo ships ever since Luna's capture, looking for weaknesses he could exploit. Their animal containment systems were designed to prevent escape from inside the cages, but they had vulnerabilities that could be exploited from outside. 2 days later, the familiar roar of Vex Thor's engines announced the captain's return to New Horizon. Marcus watched from his workshop window as the massive cargo hauler settled onto landing pad 7 with its usual lack of finesse. His heart pounded as he realized that Luna was somewhere inside that ship, probably frightened and confused. Captain Vex Thor emerged from the ship even more agitated than Marcus had ever seen him. The alien's chitinous exoskeleton was darker than usual, a sign of stress in his species, and his movements were sharp with barely controlled anger. "Human mechanic!" the captain bellowed as he stalked toward Marcus's workshop. "You will answer for damage to my property!" Marcus stepped outside to meet him, keeping his expression neutral despite the fury burning in his chest. "Captain, what seems to be the problem?" "Problem?" Vex Thor's mandibles clacked together violently. "Property you returned is worthless, refuses food, shows no spirit, behaves like broken thing. You damaged valuable breeding stock with your interference." "Where is she now?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Secured in containment, will dispose of defective specimen and collect compensation from you for lost profit." The casual way the alien talked about killing Luna made Marcus see red, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Captain, with respect, the problem isn't damage I caused. The problem is that Fenris wolves are more intelligent than you realize. They form emotional bonds, and when those bonds are broken, they can suffer severe psychological trauma." Vex Thor's compound eyes fixed on Marcus with obvious confusion. "Emotional bonds? Psychological trauma? You speak nonsense, human. Animals exist to serve, nothing more." "That's where you're wrong," Marcus said quietly, "and I can prove it." For the next 10 minutes, Marcus explained what he had learned about Fenris wolf psychology during his research. These creatures were pack animals with intelligence levels approaching that of young children. They could recognize individual faces, remember complex social relationships, and even demonstrate basic problem-solving abilities. When separated from their pack or bonded companions, they often exhibited behaviors similar to depression in humans. "Luna isn't broken," Marcus concluded. "She's grieving, and the only way to fix that is to return her to someone who cares about her well-being." Captain Vex Thor listened to this explanation with growing agitation. "You suggest I return valuable property to you? Absurd. I demand compensation for damaged goods." "I'm not asking you to give her to me," Marcus said. "I'm offering to buy her. Name your price." The alien's expression shifted as he considered this unexpected development. Marcus could practically see the calculations running through his predatory mind, weighing the profit from a sale against the cost of maintaining a supposedly defective specimen. "Creature was valued at 5,000 credits on open market," Vex Thor finally said, "but damage reduces value significantly. I accept 8,000 credits as fair compensation for loss and inconvenience." Marcus felt his stomach drop. 8,000 credits was more than he made in 6 months. It was essentially his entire life, savings plus money he didn't have. But as he thought about Luna's frightened golden eyes, He knew there was no choice. "Deal," he said, "but I want to inspect the goods before finalizing the transaction. Standard trading protocol." Vexthor grudgingly agreed, and they made their way to the cargo ship. As they walked through the corridors lined with caged creatures, Marcus's rage built with every frightened whimper and desperate cry he heard. The conditions were even worse than he remembered, with many animals showing signs of malnutrition and disease. They found Luna in a small containment cell at the back of the cargo hold. She was curled up in the corner, her once bright golden eyes now dull with despair. When she saw Marcus, her ears perked up slightly and her tail gave the faintest wag, but she didn't move from her corner. "You see," Vexthor gestured dismissively. "Broken. No spirit remaining." Marcus knelt beside the energy barrier that kept Luna confined. "Hey, girl, I'm here. It's going to be okay." At the sound of his voice, Luna finally stood and approached the barrier. She pressed her nose against the energy field, whining softly as she tried to reach him. Marcus placed his hand against the barrier from his side, and Luna pressed her paw against it from hers. "She's not broken," Marcus said firmly. "She recognizes me. She's responding to my presence. That's proof of the emotional bond I was talking about." For the first time since Marcus had known him, Captain Vexthor seemed genuinely puzzled. The concept of emotional attachment between different species was clearly beyond his comprehension. In Zethkari society, relationships were based purely on dominance and submission, with no room for the kind of mutual affection Marcus and Luna shared. "This behavior serves what purpose?" the alien asked. "It doesn't serve a purpose," Marcus replied. "It just is. Some things in the universe exist for their own sake, not because they're useful to someone else." As Marcus completed the financial transaction that would bankrupt him, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. Several of Vexthor's crew members were watching his interaction with Luna with obvious interest. Their body language suggested confusion similar to their captain's, but Marcus thought he detected something else as well, perhaps the beginning of curiosity. Once Luna was officially his property, Marcus wasted no time getting her off the ship. She followed him eagerly, staying close to his side as they made their way back to the workshop. But even as he felt joy at their reunion, Marcus knew this was only a temporary solution. He was now financially ruined, and there was nothing to stop Vexthor or another Zethkari trader from taking Luna away again. That evening, as Luna slept peacefully in her old bed for the first time in days, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Commander Drakzul appeared at his workshop door, alone and without his usual military escort. "Commander," Marcus said warily, "what brings you back to New Horizon?" The imposing alien studied Luna, who had awakened and was watching him with alert but unafraid eyes. "I have been investigating the circumstances of this creature's original abandonment. Captain Vexthor's account of events contains inconsistencies." Marcus felt a surge of hope. "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Ship's logs indicate the creature was placed in engine compartment maintenance alcove rather than proper containment. Standard protocol for valuable cargo was not followed. Additionally, crew manifest shows no record of scheduled feeding for this specimen during final 3 days of voyage." The commander paused, his compound eyes shifting between Marcus and Luna. Most interesting, however, is security recording of conversation between Captain Vexithor and human mechanic. Recording confirms your account of abandonment statement. Marcus's heart began to race. If Drakzul had evidence that Vexthor had lied in his official report, it could change everything. "What does this mean for Luna?" Marcus asked. "Zethkari law is clear regarding false testimony and theft investigations. Captain Vexthor has committed serious offense. However, this raises larger questions about treatment of intelligent creatures in hegemony space." The commander moved closer to Luna, who surprised everyone by approaching him without fear. She sniffed at his clawed hand, then sat back and tilted her head as if studying him. "Creature shows no signs of distress in my presence," Drak-Zul observed, "yet it responds to you with clear attachment behaviors. This suggests discrimination ability beyond simple animal instinct." "She's intelligent," Marcus said. "All Fenris wolves are. They can learn, form relationships, even solve problems. They're not just property, they're living beings with their own thoughts and feelings." "If this is true," the commander said slowly, "then treatment of such creatures as mere cargo raises ethical concerns that extend beyond individual cases of abandonment." Over the next hour, Commander Drak-Zul questioned Marcus extensively about Fenris wolf behavior and intelligence. He observed Luna's responses to various stimuli, tested her problem-solving abilities, and even attempted basic communication exercises. With each demonstration of Luna's cognitive abilities, the alien commander's expression grew more thoughtful. Finally, Drak-Zul stood and straightened his imposing frame. "Human mechanic, your actions in this matter have exposed flaws in hegemony policy that require correction. Captain Vexthor will face charges for false testimony and criminal negligence. But more importantly, I am recommending formal review of creature classification protocols." Marcus hardly dared to hope. "What does that mean?" "It means that if investigation confirms the intelligence levels you have demonstrated, Fenris wolves and similar species may be reclassified as sentient beings rather than property. Such reclassification would grant them legal protections against abuse and abandonment." The implications of what the commander was saying slowly sank in. Marcus's simple act of rescuing one abandoned wolf pup had led to a chain of events that could potentially free thousands of intelligent creatures from lives of slavery and abuse. "Commander," Marcus said carefully, "what would happen to Luna during this investigation?" Drak-Zul looked at the small wolf who had fallen asleep curled up against Marcus's leg. "Specimen will remain in your custody as evidence of proper care protocols. Your methods will be studied as potential model for future handling of reclassified species." 3 months later, Marcus received word that the Zethkari hegemony had officially reclassified Fenris wolves and 17 other species as cognitively enhanced fauna, with legal protections against mistreatment. Captain Vexthor had been stripped of his trading license and sentenced to labor rehabilitation for his crimes. But perhaps most importantly, the decision had created a ripple effect throughout the galaxy. Other governments began reviewing their own policies regarding intelligent creatures, and a movement began to establish universal standards for the treatment of sentient beings regardless of their species of origin. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the passenger liner Starward Bound, watching Luna play with a group of children in the ship's recreational area. At 6 months old, she was now the size of a medium dog and showed all the intelligence and grace of her species. The children adored her, and she seemed to understand that her role was to be gentle with these small humans who delighted in her presence. They were traveling to New Geneva, a human colony world that had agreed to provide Luna with a permanent home in their wildlife preserve. She would have access to other Fenris wolves who had been liberated from various traders and the chance to live as nature had intended. But Marcus knew that even as he gave Luna the freedom she deserved, she had already given him something far more valuable. She had shown him that compassion could be a force for change in the universe, that one person's refusal to accept injustice could create waves that reached across star systems. As Luna looked up at him with those bright golden eyes and wagged her tail in joy, Marcus realized that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could indeed change everything. He had saved one wolf pup from death and loneliness, but in doing so, he had helped save thousands of other creatures from similar fates. In the cold vastness of space, where life was often harsh and unforgiving, the simple bond between a human and a wolf had become a beacon of hope that would shine for generations to come. And for Marcus, that was worth every credit he had spent and every risk he had taken. After all, some things in the universe were more valuable than money or safety. Some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Luna barked once in playful invitation, and Marcus smiled as he went to join her. They had both found exactly what they needed, each other, and the knowledge that neither of them would ever be abandoned again.